Hello, I am Dan.
And I am Can.
And this is a Candid conversation. A short form podcast where we deal with some pertinent shit that just got us demonetized if we ever are monetized on YouTube.
Aw, too bad.
Well,
we're not getting anything.
Right. It's all right. I'll edit it out if this one starts performing well. Candy?
Yeah.
A house divided cannot stand upon itself.
Is that the phrase? Or is it just a house divided cannot stand?
And a daughter with a bullhorn at a 4th of July party.
She's dividing the house.
You care to explain?
Well, okay. So what Dan's referring to is a TikTok that I saw where a daughter was at her parents' house for the 4th of July. And her parents are progressive. But they invited a MAGA person, a person who associates with MAGA, to the party. Mm-hmm. And they are all sitting down at a table down on the patio, and she's up in a bedroom with a bullhorn shouting, "I'm exposing my parents, for inviting a MAGA person my progressive parents have invited a MAGA person to this party." And in the comments, it was like, "I'm glad shame is being brought back in style," and all these things, like she was in the right. She was in the right. And then there was a few, including myself, that said, "Whoa, hold up. First of all, this is just black and white thinking again. There's a right and there's a wrong. Instead of like, sometimes it's right and sometimes it's not right. Sometimes it's beneficial to have a conversation up close with a MAGA and invite them over, because it might help them change their minds, or they might start to discover that they're in a cult, Yeah. But then sometimes it's fruitless, and if you're just going to let them come over and spew their ideas and spread hate, well, yeah, that's not helpful. But I don't know what they were doing. All we know, and I don't know that she even knew what was going on, because they may have been having a conversation. It was like they were sitting at a table. She was just screaming and causing, a scene, and she felt self-righteous.
Yeah. And it's, to get biblical on this, it's the dog returning to the vomit. It's no different of behavior than what we were when we were Christian, where we separated ourselves from the outside world and we created a new bubble. Mm-hmm. So if you go on the other side and create a progressive bubble, you're preventing growth and understanding.
You're seeing all Christians as evil, all
red hats are evil.
Anybody who's wearing a red hat, regardless of what it says, if you have a red hat, or regardless of, I've heard people say, if you even associate with someone who's MAGA at all, talk to them at all, you are just as big a part of the problem. And that is so unfair. Yeah. And it's also not going to help. It's hate. Yeah. It's just more hate and more division, and it's not going to get us anywhere.
Let's look at this just from a rational point of view. There's a substantial amount of the country that supports that. So how are you going to eliminate 50% of the country from...
I don't think really 50% does support it, but let's say hypothetically that's true, even though that's the claim. Yeah. Yeah.
So you're saying this isn't getting associated. You have to build bonds, because rationally speaking, there's probably like 70, 80% that are just kind of in the middle, that kind of swing both ways. They see valid points on both sides of things. And then the extremes want to keep everything separated. They want to keep dividing that 80% up and pull it to their side. And that division does nothing.
And it's not the two sides of like Republican and Democrat. That's where they're kind of in the middle. Maybe there's some conservative views and there's some liberal views or progressive views that they kind of hold to. They can see some conservative areas where it might be better to be more conservative, and some areas where it might be okay to be a little more liberal. MAGA is its whole another beast in and of itself, but it is people are in a cult. Yes, they are completely brainwashed in it. And It's just like when I was completely brainwashed in evangelical Christianity. And if no one had been willing to get up close to me to actually have a conversation, I'd be, and if nobody was putting out information on the internet that was kind and where it was soft enough that I could listen, without calling me names and because the defenses go up. Naturally, our defenses go up when we're called names. If you call somebody a racist, their defenses are going up.
Yeah.
You're not going to get through to them. If you want to get through to somebody, you cannot call them that. You have to be, it doesn't mean they're not doing things that are racist.
Let's put it into a term that we can relate to, that we used to do. You're talking to someone, a stranger, and you're a Christian, and all of a sudden they drop shit in the conversation.
They say the word shit. Yeah.
Automatically, you just dismiss them as being credible of anything.
Yeah. You're not listening because you heard that they are swearing, and that's bad language, and you can't take it. You can't listen to bad language. So already you're not listening because you're hung up on the words that they're saying.
Yeah.
And we have to be. And this is not for I'm not saying that everybody, I do not think a trans person should probably have MAGA over at all. I do not think that's safe for them. No. But I do think that there are some of us that are in a mentally.
Well, it depends on the trans person.
It does depend on the trans person. But I'm thinking
else, someone's got to be very.
You have to be emotionally mature enough to do it.
Yeah.
But also the reason I pick trans people because they're so targeted right now. Yeah. Like it could be very scary. Yeah, but some of them are able to do it because
a trans person probably doesn't want to invite a Proud Boy over.
No. And would I invite a Proud Boy over not knowingly? Probably. I don't think I would, but I would be very cautious if I did. Yeah. Like I would be very aware that what is the point of this? It is not, we're not going to give them a platform to spew things. And it would have to be somebody who I knew was like starting to question. Yeah. I'm not bringing over someone who's proud MAGA and is going to push it at people. Yeah. If we have a party, and but we do not invite. We keep the family things. It's open to all. Yeah. When we invite family over, anybody is welcome, and we will. But if conversations are being had that are not safe for everybody, then they have to leave.
And that could be an example we conclude this with, but. So put a pin in that part of it, the family invite. Let's keep talking about the problem that this causes, because it's just driving a giant wedge.
It's
in between.
We're over here, you're over there. It's us versus you. It's you're our enemy. We're the good guy. But both sides think that way.
Yeah, both extremes think that way.
Because here's another video that I saw was that flooding that happened in Texas, and the one lady was saying that posted it was like, let's stop making it political. People are dying, blah, blah, blah. And there's people in there that are more MAGA leaning saying that liberals are so happy that children are dying because this proves that they're right about, the government it was because Noah wasn't, people were fired. And so they didn't give the information. And I don't know what the truth is there, but I was like, and I said that, first of all, that's not true. Like, there's a lot of liberals that do think this is devastatingly sad.
You're dealing with the extremes again. There's extreme.
But that's what a lot of people are hearing because they're loud.
Yeah, there are extremes on the left that are saying stuff like that.
Yeah. And on the right.
You deserve this. You're a red state, and you deserve this because this is what you voted for.
But then the right.
And you're reaping what you sow.
That guy who had a lot of likes on his comment was, I will never associate with people who rejoice at children being slaughtered. And I'm like, do you understand that they're saying the same thing to you? They think you enjoy children being slaughtered when they're looking at, undocumented people.
Yeah.
That you got alligator Alcatraz or whatever, and they think you are enjoying children, because there's jokes, quote unquote jokes about people getting eaten by alligators, and it's supposed to be funny. And so it's the same thing, both sides. They can't see that they're doing the same thing. And
same shit, different diaper.
Yeah, and it's not. There's a time and a place to be in that space. Like if you just came out of a toxic religion on this side, you will likely swing to the other side out of suffering and pain. You will likely do that. But then as you mature, you start to look at nuance a little more, and you start to be able to hold nuance.
Yeah, and it speaks to something that we've talked about a lot. separation is not the answer. And
No.
when you're trying to force these wedges in and force separation,
we're getting weaker and weaker as people.
Nothing is going to progress. You're going to stay in the same bubbles and nothing will be done. And it's just going to be fighting back and forth. And nothing.
Probably a lot of bloodshed and stuff, even at some point.
Nothing great is going to come from it, more than likely. So you got to break down these walls. And what we learned in deconstructing, I think could really apply to this situation, is you have to come up and be face to face with these people. Mm-hmm. And
that doesn't mean surrendering your beliefs.
It's a little different in deconstruction, because what we were doing was we were told that LGBTQ was completely wrong and evil. And
we thought they had an agenda to make everybody gay.
And there was the gay agenda around and all this. And they're forcing all this stuff. And luckily we were out before we got into they're doing transgender surgeries in the schools. You know, you're dropping your kid off, you're dropping your son off in the morning, and you're bringing your daughter home at night.
Yeah.
And we see it for the ridiculousness that it is, but some people actually are believing this.
And some people still believe the kids are going to the bathroom in cat litter.
Yeah. So when we started just relating and meeting and coming face to face with people of the LGBT community, it broke down a lot of them barriers. And that was a lot easier because it wasn't as a tense situation for us as we were deconstructing and seeing it. It was a little milder, and this is going to be a little more tense when you're
that's interesting. Yeah, people deconstructing now very early
political views and this just ideology that's going on. There's going to be some tension in there, but there is room in there for people that are, and you have to be well grounded, you have to be healed. You know, if you're not, you're going to be taken through the ringer.
Yes, and that's why I'm saying, like, it's not for everybody to do this, but don't say that people who are doing it are the bad guy, and we need some people to do it, because that's how we'll get through to them.
We need bridges being built.
We do. And it doesn't mean we say it's okay what you're doing. No, we have the conversations of why it's not okay.
Yeah.
But if we don't get up close to them, and they have to see that we're safe, because they are being told, like, that Democrats are demons, basically. They are being told that there are that people are doing these surgeries. They're so brainwashed that they believe it's true.
And the deconstruction community could be a force in this, because we've
been on both sides,
where we've heard these things of, this is what an atheist thinks, and they're out sacrificing babies, and they're Satanist and all this, until we finally met atheists and realized, oh, we were being fed a bunch of lies.
And what's
happening right now? Everyone on the extreme right is being fed a bunch of lies about what's happening on the left-leaning person. And people on the extreme left are being fed some lies on what's being done on the right. This is what the right's being doing. And most people are in the middle that don't believe these extremes that are going on. But they still wear a red hat, or they wear a blue hat or a blue dot or whatever, and you're not allowing them to get together. When you allow them to get together and kind of work this out and rationally talk about it, things happen. And
when you shame them, it's not helping. Yeah.
So kind of start wrapping this one up. An example that we have is our July 3rd party. Because there are definite people there that are very pro 47 and MAGA. And there are definitely people there that are very anti-MAGA and all this. And if you look at what comes to our party, it is an extreme hodgepodge of what's going on. And it's actually getting a little more diverse now. So we had people that were Muslim at this last one. You know, we've had people of different nationalities and races, and different socio-political beliefs. So you bring them together, and even though if they don't talk,
they're in the same vicinity as each other, and they realize that these people are people.
They're people too.
They're humans. They're not. They're not demons, but they're also like someone who's. It makes you think twice when you think all MAGA deserves one thing, or all liberals deserve one thing, or you know what I'm saying? Because you know somebody. You know somebody who's that, and they are kind. Or they have children, or you see them in them as in person. Instead of just reading about them or watching them on a screen.
And I think about when you look at it, the people that were MAGA there, they came in, they're wearing their golf shirts and golf pants. They're dressed a certain way, clean cut and all this. And then we have people there that would appear extremely intimidating with all the tattoos and the beard and, the just, yes, very intimidating look where you can be like, ooh, okay, that one could be really liberal. And honestly, I don't know where they lean. But
more liberal.
They're the sweetest person you've ever met and would give you the shirt off their back, no questions asked. And when these other button-up people have this judgment of, well, look at all them tattoos and how they present themselves in public. But wait a minute. They're actually kind of nice and fun and non-judgmental.
It says something. It's a chipping away. Yes, it's a softening of the view that you have, because we have these identities that we put on ourselves or put on other people, and they come with a whole bunch of other stuff attached to it, right? And we need to chip away on both sides, because then we can actually learn how to, like, if we see each other as humans, we're not going to dehumanize one another. Yeah. And that's what we need to stop doing, because
honestly, that's what happens and this is kind of a war, a social war. That's what happens in war with propaganda. And you look at some of the propaganda that came from World War II, and you're like, wow, that is offensive, especially when you're dealing with what was being printed in the Japanese media or about Japanese people, and the stereotypical stuff that was out there is like, oh, wow, that wouldn't fly today, would it? But we do have it with Middle Easterners, where they draw a certain stereotypical caricature of what's going on there, and people allow it. And they're like,
and they think it's funny. And even the alligator thing, like, that's funny to think of somebody being eaten by alligators. Like, seriously, if you saw a human getting eaten by alligator, you would be traumatized. Like, that's a horrendous. It's not funny.
Yeah. And if you're not, then you probably need to see someone.
Well, and they need to be up. If they're up close and they say something, then you have the group that can be like, are you kidding? That's crazy. Like, where you get some pushback up in their face, because that's where you'll see the real person. It's easy behind a keyboard to type out all these things. Yeah. But then if you're standing in front of a group of people that actually do not think exactly like you might get challenged, and that would be healthy.
And that's what you need, is the chipping away and the humanizing of everything, because everything's been dehumanized now. Yeah. On one side, immigrants are seen as these other than human things.
They call them illegal aliens, is what they call them. Yeah. So that you don't even think of them as people.
Yeah. And that way you can make a joke about alligator Alcatraz, because they're not human. They don't have the same qualities. We dehumanized them. So that's what the propaganda is putting out. But when you start to humanize them and see,
they are just like you.
People.
Yeah. And they have kids, and
they have families, they have dreams.
They love and hate, and they like the same foods, or you know what I'm saying? Like, they have similarities. They're human beings just like you. Yeah.
So when you can start making them bridges and actually breaking down these walls and saying, hey, let's have a discussion on this. Because, a couple weeks ago, my dad called, and he started, he's pro 47. And he started going on things. And he started talking about the immigration raids that happened in Omaha. He's like, that's good. We need to get rid of them. They're out here. And I go, that's great. But what's that business going to do without 100 employees? And all he had heard was the pro.
He's only listening to Fox News.
Yeah.
And his circle is very small, and they all support the same things.
But he never thought about that.
It's never challenged. Yeah. So if he doesn't talk to you, he doesn't hear that side.
Yeah. So it kind of threw him for a loop of, this was all reported as great because we were getting rid of this. And
it never occurred to him, that thought. The critical thinking is not as very strong in this area.
It was just a practical, it didn't put on any political belief or anything like that.
It was just a question of curiosity, like,
So what's going to happen to that business now? And if that's a product that you buy, what's going to happen to the cost of that? Because they're not going to be able to produce as much. So supply's down. So that means price is going to go up.
And there's less people to buy those products too. So that's a whole problem in and of itself. So there's a lot of issues that it brings up that they wouldn't think about.
Little things like that can not actually be political or any challenging like that. It just brings up a question. It makes them think of something that they're not being told, because they're being fed a bunch of bullshit that supports their side without the consequences that go on it. Another simple thing you can say is, when they're talking about all these ICE raids and everything going on, it's like, I thought we were trying to limit government spending, and all the money that you're saving, that's quotation marks there, from
BBB.
Yeah. Delivering away, deporting all these people from the scourge that they are on our economy because they're stealing all of our assets.
Which he's being sarcastic, if anybody doesn't know. Sometimes people don't get your sarcasm.
Not true, but the amount of money spent to do this is overwhelmingly
way more than
what they could justify being saved by getting rid of it.
Yeah, it's just
and you bring up that question
to be cruel.
So what about this efficiency? That doesn't seem very efficient. Seems like we would have been better off doing nothing on it and would have saved a little money in the long run instead of trying to enforce all this bullshit. And you just get them little things like that to think about. It's not political. It's like you can almost agree with them. You can be like, yeah, I get it, but I want to save money in the government. So why are we spending all this money for enforcement? We're spending $100 to save a dime. That's not good business.
No,
that's not good fiscal responsibility. And it's not political. And so if you can keep it on them lines, you can talk to these people and just raising questions, get them to think, break that cognitive dissonance.
And that is just another. That's the reason why we would disagree with people who say, like, hey, don't have them over at anything. Don't associate with them. Don't talk with them. Because if we continue to do that, we remember what it was like in Christianity. And if nobody was willing to come inside that bubble to help us, we would have stayed in that bubble. And that bubble, because you're just, all the information you get comes from the bubble. And people who bring it in, they warp it. So Fox News is all that your dad is hearing.
Yeah.
He's not hearing he never turns it to CNN. He turns it to, and CNN is very left leaning, but he never listens to PBR.
Pabst Blue Ribbon?
Isn't that public broadcasting radio?
NPR.
PBR
is a beer.
Yeah, it is. Okay, NPR, and then there's public broadcasting, PBS.
Yeah, PBS.
He doesn't listen to any of those. And that's more neutral. He's not listening to them. He's not listening to anybody. He's not on social media.
No.
He's just listening to Fox News. And in social media, a lot of times you're getting caught in an algorithm that's feeding you that it knows that you will like, right? So you're getting caught in these bubbles. That's why you need to break the bubble by putting in the opposite, put in a hashtag of MAGA and listen to what they're saying and find out how they're talking.
And you learn how to just deal with them. Like I said, you don't have to disagree with the core concept of what's going on, because what's the core concept? It's fiscal responsibility. All right, that sounds great. I think everyone could agree on that. Let's be responsible with what the government, how the government's spending money.
Everybody mostly does agree on that.
But how is this saving money? It seems like it's spending a lot more. Snaps that mindset.
Yeah, it at least trips it for a second. That kind of pops them out of hypnosis for a second. They might go back in pretty quickly, but they'll come out of it for a second, and you've tripped it. You have created a new, because your brain, that neuroplasticity that's going on, you've created a new link that will maybe go with them and that cause them to kind of question things.
So you're trying to break them out of this cult that they're in on either side.
Yeah, and the point is, not everybody is up to this, and we're not saying this is a formula that everybody has to do this. We're just saying don't judge people who are taking the initiative to walk this step, because there was a time when we wouldn't have done it, and now we feel ready that we are able to do it.
And we still don't do it. I talk to my family, and I don't do it every time. But every now and then I feel a little fire in the belly.
But what I'm saying is there's some relationships where for a while I couldn't talk to them at all.
Yeah.
And now I can have these conversations, and they're not long.
Yeah.
But those little things are planting seeds, and I will not listen to somebody who says, shame on you, you are part of the problem if you're doing that. I totally disagree, because there's other points of view here. You cannot think that you've got to not listen to the people that are telling you how to do this. Like we're all trying to help here.
Again, because you have all the right answers.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. You got to figure it out for yourself. Nobody has all the right answers for you. Only you do.
And the
You've got to
more
figure them out.
you learn and the more you grow, the more you realize you don't have any of the answers.
No.
You're just trying to figure out what's best for you.
Well, and you don't have any answers for everybody else, but you can have the answers for yourself.
Yeah.
You can listen to your own self, like what do I feel up to being able to do here?
Yep.
You got to ask yourself, but it's not a formula. Nothing is one size fits all. That doesn't mean you can turn to your neighbor and this shows whether you're on this side or this side.
Mm-hmm.
No. Stop with all of that and stop listening to people that are preaching that. Instead, what can you do? What are you willing to do? What are you able to do? And then do that, regardless, whatever, because you're going to get bad mouthed from both sides. And there's just no way around that. Yeah. In every spectrum thing, like Christianity, when you come out of Christianity, you're going to get bad mouthed by Christians. But if you don't go all the way to atheism, you could get bad mouthed by atheists. You know what I'm saying? So figure it out for yourself.
Yep.
And stop trying to tell other people how to live their lives.
How to live their lives. Because you're just the same shit.
Yeah.
that you're doing that you left. So,
exactly.
Go to DannyCan.com. Check out stuff on there. Candy's putting a whole bunch of new stuff on there. So her new series she's putting out.
Called Return to Sender. It came out today.
Yep.
It's letters to people from my past. And the first one is a letter to my father.
So it's...
that he'll never read. Which is like all the other letters I ever wrote him.
So some things stay the same.
Some things need to be said, though.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's a good thing to read. So go to DannyCan.com. You can check that out there. Everything else that we're doing is on there also. Go up, give us 5 stars. We'd appreciate that. It helps us out a ton. It keeps pushing us out to new listeners and all that. So we'd really appreciate that. And if you're on YouTube, hit that like, smash that subscribe.
Yes, these are little ways you can support us, guys. Yep. It takes a lot of work doing all the things that we're doing, and we're putting a lot of energy in it because we care and we have passion for it. But any way you can support us is appreciated.
It would be fantastic. Yeah. And just reach out, tell us what you think and all that. Give us ideas, suggestions, whatever. We're open to hear anything.
Yeah.
So give us all that. And with that, remember, we're here to build bridges, not crevices. So
not crevices.
See which way you can build a bridge between someone and just kind of break down these bubbles that the extremes are in and see if we can get in there.
But only if you're in that space too. Yeah. If you're still in black and white thinking, if you're still in like somebody's all evil and all good and you're good and they're bad, there's a lot of inner work still that needs to be done.
If you're on either of the extremes, you
got to realize you're good sometimes, you're bad sometimes.
It's
you're
not going to work
right, you're wrong.
But for the people that are in the middle, reach across the aisle. Invite people over, have discussions. Just to get to know and humanize everybody again.
This is where some of us who have deconstructed could really help.
Yep. So, build bridges.
Yeah.
We enjoy them.
Yeah.
All right. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.